Hello and welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Show. I am your host, Jay Jones. Black Entrepreneur Blueprint was created specifically to educate and inspire Black entrepreneurs to launch, build, and grow successful businesses. Join us as we help build an economic power base in the Black community by promoting business ownership. If you are currently an entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur, we invite you to join us every week here at Black Entrepreneur Blueprint.
Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, episode number 314. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and today we have another outstanding show in store for you. Today we're going to be talking with Mr. Marcus Whitney, who has an amazing entrepreneurial story. Marcus went from being a college dropout to actually owning his own venture capital firm. Now, before we get to this amazing story with Marcus Whitney, I just want to share a few things with the BEB family. First and foremost, I want to welcome all first-time listeners to Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Welcome to the BEB family. Please stick around until the end of today's broadcast, and I'm going to share all my social media contact information and my resource links, such as the link to my new book, A New Black Wall Street, Circulating the Black Dollar Worldwide by Building Successful E-Commerce Businesses, and also 2 platforms I've created to help circulate dollars in the Black community, BeSmartByBlack.com and HireBlackFreelancers.com. So let's get ready for the interview with Mr. Marcus Whitney. Brother Marcus, how are you today, man?
I'm good, Brother Jay. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. Hey, bro, I know when we talked off the air, man, you got a lot of stuff going on, man. But before we get into that, your entrepreneurial story, tell my listeners who are not familiar with you a little bit about who you are and your background, and then we'll get into your entrepreneurial journey.
Absolutely. So the quick and dirty on me is I'm a college dropout who was waiting tables and taught myself how to code. I parlayed that into an equity position in a startup that did very well, parlayed that into a series of entrepreneurial journeys. And today I'm a co-owner of a healthcare venture capital fund and co-founder and minority owner of a Major League Soccer team.
We got a lot to unpack today, family. So one of the things, man, you talked about you were a college dropout, you were waiting tables. And what was your mindset during that time? So I know when you go to college, your idea obviously wasn't to drop out. But when you're in that situation, where's your mindset at, man? And how were you able to go from there to where you are today?
Yeah, man, pressure makes diamonds, right? So I had a 1-year-old and I had another kid on the way. And
oh, wow.
I'm waiting tables and I'm living in one of these week-to-week motels, man, and it's just the clock is ticking. You know what I mean? I got a certain number of months. It was probably 6 or 7 months from the moment that I really realized I got to do something to the point where my second son is going to be born. And I can't take traditional routes. So, I had to think, what can a college dropout do? And this is the year 2000, just to kind of frame it up. What can a college dropout do that will radically change their economic status? And the only thing I could really think of was computer programming. At that time in 2000, that was the dot-com boom, right? The bust hadn't happened yet. So there was money being thrown all over the place. And it was the one place where you were seeing kids in high school were getting jobs, man. Kids riding around on skateboards were making $100,000. So I was like, man, if I could just figure out how to code, that might be a way for me to, bypass all of this lack of credentials that I have here. And it worked. It worked. I was working 6.5 days a week, double shifts, and went in between tables or nights, or when I had any time at all, I would just read these computer books. And a little bit of time I had at home, I had my son in my lap and my other hand just on the computer typing. And I did that for some months. I would go to these free user groups where
Wow.
basically companies will open their doors and the programmers that work in those companies would just share things that they knew, things that they were passionate about. And these are free sessions you can go to. And even today, like, I mean, I know the pandemic has things shut down, but, even today, if you go to like meetup.com in your city, you'll find all these user groups. So for people who are looking to code, it's not just about learning the stuff. You also network with professionals. So they'll tell you the real about what it takes, what you need to know, what you don't need to know. So I did that. And I got my first job offer the day after my second son was born. Totally changed my life. I'm going from making, I don't know, $50 a day or whatever to, at that time, 2001, $45,000 benefits, you know what I mean? And that stabilized me for the future.
So let me ask you, what was the time frame when you decided, let me start coding, and your first job? What was that time frame like?
So September 2000 to April 2000, April 2001. So,
okay,
16 months. Yeah, 8 months. 8 months.
September. I'm sorry. Yeah, September.
September.
Wow.
Yeah,
8 months.
8 months.
Now, do you have a proficiency with computers? Because I know some people, they pick things up like that.
Yeah, my uncle worked for IBM, and when I was very, very young, he gave me an IBM PC Junior for Christmas. And back then, man, these phones are so powerful, right? Back then, if you had a computer, it didn't do anything unless you programmed it. So I learned the basics, but I didn't have real deep knowledge about how to program. I had to learn most of that on my own. But programming is about logic and math. If you're decent in math, you understand logic, you can teach yourself how to code. And 8 months is about the right amount of time to be able to do it, honestly. Okay.
It's funny, man. So I'm dating myself now, but when I was in college, my major initially was computer science.
Okay.
And the reason was, that's the new thing, computers, So I took languages like Fortran, Pascal, COBOL, C, all of that stuff. And I found myself, man, other people were solving problems and doing the homework and the classwork like this. And I'm over there scratching my head. And then I said, man, I need to start connecting with my classmates and start working in groups. I did that. It got a little better. But after my sophomore year, man, I said, nobody's going to pay me for this. I have no proficiency in the programming aspect. So I switched over to business, man, into finance. And I was happy. I was comfortable there. And, but yeah, bro, I was like, nobody's going to hire me for anything, man. I can't even create a sentence on the free. So, but that's cool. That's why I was wondering. I said 8 months. Yeah, you must have some proficiency in that, man.
Yeah. So, for sure. No question.
Okay. So we know that's how you got started with your job there. Now, tell us about what that first job was, and did you transition into your own business after that, or were there a series of jobs prior to your transition?
Yeah, so the first job was at a company called HealthStream. They do e-learning for the healthcare industry, and I was a junior programmer, so I'm like at the bottom of the barrel, man. And what I learned in my 1 year there, I only lasted 1 year. What I learned is that I am not good at office politics. And I really don't belong at big companies. So this was the beginning of me learning that I'm an entrepreneur, because I would see issues and I didn't understand that there was a political way you had to kind of navigate solving problems in a corporation. So I would just like go right to the head. I mean, literally, like I got a meeting with the CEO one day and I was just telling him everything that was wrong. And then next thing I knew, all of my superiors, the stack of my superiors in between me and the CEO was all looking at me real funny. Mm-hmm. So that was the beginning of me understanding, oh, wow, there's a way that this stuff has to work, and I don't think I'm cut out for it. So I left there after a year. I went to a smaller agency, stayed there for a year, left for a similar reason, not the same exact reason, but left for a similar reason. And finally, I found myself as the fifth employee at this early stage technology company in email marketing. This is 2003, called Emma Email Marketing. And back in 2003, man, email marketing was hot. You got to realize, like, there's no social networks. You know what I'm saying? There's no iPhone. iPhone didn't even come out till 2007. So email marketing was really pretty cutting edge back then. And so I joined this company, fifth employee, and there was so much work and so few people that there was no time for politics, man. I had 2 jobs. You know what I mean? I'm doing the programming, and I'm also doing the customer service. So I was so busy, and everyone else was so busy. We didn't have time for politics. And that's when I realized that's what I love. I love the startup world. You know what I mean? I love just getting my hands dirty, doing a bunch of stuff, and working with other people who like to do a bunch of stuff. So I loved Emma. I stayed there for 4 years, and that was where I got my first jewels about the startup game. You know what I mean? Okay. I got some equity. I learned how to manage a team. I learned how to grow a team. You know, I watched us bring in our first $1 million and then multiple millions of dollars after that. And so I got my real entrepreneurship education, my first part of it, at Emma from 2003 to 2007.
Cool. Did Emma get bought out? Because I haven't heard of them. Or are they still around?
They did get bought out by a company called Campaign Monitor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, they did get bought out. So
were you there during the exit?
No. I actually left in 2007, and I actually sold my equity back to the company to start my company.
Gotcha.
I owned 7.5% of the company, and I sold it back to the company because they had enough cash to buy it from me, and I used that to start my very first business. Okay. That was how I started my entrepreneurial journey in 2007 that I've been on for the last 13 years.
Cool. So what was your first venture when you went out on your own after you sold your equity, man?
I started a software development agency. We were building software for companies and startups. And that was where I started to learn my first hard lessons, man. That was where I started to learn my first hard lessons. I could sell and I could deliver, but I didn't understand finance. I didn't understand operations. I didn't understand human resources, right? Like you look at somebody else running a company, and you're like, I could do that. And then when it's on you, when you're the CEO, and you realize, oh, you mean it's not just selling and delivering? There's all this other stuff I got to do. You know what I mean? That's when I started to get my real education. So I ran that company for 2 years, and even though we made a couple $1 million, I actually ended up folding it into another company because I let one client represent 70% of my revenue, and I lost all the leverage in my company. Wow. And they made a demand, and I had no leverage. I became the CTO of their company.
Really?
Yes.
Get out of there.
Yes.
So they were 70% of your revenue?
Yep. I had serious concentration risk, but I didn't have a mentor to kind of tell me diversify your revenue. You know what I mean? And don't stop selling and just keep delivering for this one client because they're giving you more money. They're actually, on the sneak tip, buying your company for cheap. This is what's happening. Exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I didn't understand that. So that was a hard lesson, but a good one.
Yeah. Well, I want the light bulb to go off for the BEB family that's listening right now, watching. I talk about 1 being the worst number for a business. So if that's your main client, something happens to that, now you're in the situation where you're in. One of my questions I was going to get to, and I don't know if this is going to be the answer, but I'm going to pose it now. Tell me about a time in your business where you failed or almost failed, and how did you overcome it? If you did, and what did you learn from it? I don't know if this was the biggest or if there's something else further along the way.
Yeah, I failed a lot, man. And I wrote about my failures in my book, Create and Orchestrate, because the failures are where you really learn, right? The successes, they're great. You're happy for them, but they're usually a result of the previous failures. So this was a big failure for me, man. When you got a company that's making millions of dollars and you got 10 plus people on payroll and you have to fold the company, you got to kind of scratch your head and say, why? What did I do wrong? Right. So that was a really big failure. It actually knocked me out of the game for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Knocked me out. I mean, I was kind of stuck in that company. I had a side hustle, and I could talk about that, but I was stuck in that company for 4 years, and that was a dumb move.
Mm-hmm.
I think outside of that, I learned a lot inside of that next company that I was in around leadership. I learned a lot around how important getting the culture of the company right through the vision and the values, how important that is, because especially if you're going to grow, and I know we're going to talk about venture capital here in a second.
Right.
A lot of
Right.
people talk about they want venture capital, and venture capital is an unnatural way to grow a business. Everyone needs to understand that. Like, you're infusing cash you didn't earn to grow
Right.
at an unnatural pace. And
Right.
think about trying to throw anything up faster than it should naturally go. You're going to have to be very precise in your execution. The way you execute precisely is through leadership, is through excellent communication of vision and values, communication and management, right? Like holding the standard. And through that company that I got folded into, is called Moontoast, is a technology company, venture backed. That was what I learned. I learned that our management team struggled we struggled there, and we couldn't get the most. We had capital, we had a good team, but we couldn't get the team to work together in the way that they needed to. This kind of stuff always starts from the top, which is not the CEO. Actually, it's actually the board.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's actually the board. The board needs to kind of make these decisions. But yeah, that was a really, really big one for me. And I think if you're a small entrepreneur, it's less of a worry. You kind of run a single shingle thing. It's you're out there hustling, no big deal. In that case, your big thing is concentration risk. Don't have one customer represent too much of your revenue. But if you're trying to grow, you got to know, of all the things that you want to delegate, you could delegate sales, marketing, product development, customer service. You can't delegate leadership.
Exactly.
Gotta
have it. That's a big point. So let me just go back real quick, Marcus. When you talk about when you got folded into this other entity, so basically, since they control so much of your business, did they say, okay, why don't you just come in and work within our company? Were you still independent, or did they like absorb you and just say, come on in?
I mean, I didn't. So I didn't have anything of value. So this is important, right? Mm-hmm. We didn't own IP.
Right.
We were a services-based business. So we were only worth our revenue, and they were not going to pay a multiple on our revenue, because what they wanted was the labor. So really what I ended up doing was shutting the company down and accepting equity in the new company, but it was a small percentage. I think it was 3 to 5% or something like that. Of the new company. And then I brought some of my team, really just the technical talent, the administrative people and the sales people, I actually had to let go. So I had to let go probably 3 people in the company, and then I brought the rest over.
Okay. I just want to touch on this real quick before we move forward. What were those conversations like, man? Because one of the things when you're the owner of a business, I talk about you have your family at home, but you also have a family in the office that's dependent upon you, to lead the ship and make sure that everything is good. What were those conversations like when you had to let the people that help you build your business go? And I've had them too, man, and it's tough.
I think they take days off your life. I mean, they are absolutely heartbreaking. It's like a breakup, right? It's the death of a dream. It's the that relationship is likely never going to be the same again. You know that people depended on you and you failed. But bottom line, now having done this enough times, people are resilient and they survive beyond you, right? Like, born alone, die alone. It's like they don't need you to survive. But in that moment, you can't help but feel like they do. You know what I'm saying? If you have a heart, letting people go is just never fun. It's just not. And I think that the thing I learned from those moments is that hiring people is no small matter. Like, if you hire somebody, you better be sure your stuff is together enough to be able to keep them in place. Don't just think flippantly, I want to hire people because I want to grow, and your foundation's not solid. Because if you have to turn around and fire those people, it's going to crush you.
Exactly. And it's funny, man. It's almost like buying property. You make your money on the purchase.
Yes.
And it's the same thing with employees. It's like you have to vet them and make sure that, number one, they're a great fit. They understand their role. Are they a team player? And it's less expensive to keep and retain good employees than to keep hiring and trying to find new ones.
Absolutely.
So that's key, man. That's big with that. But yeah, I felt the same way, man, when my mortgage company collapsed, man. We had like 50 plus employees. Shut it down. We had to shut it down. And but we gave them a heads up. And look, go ahead, don't even come to work. We'll pay you for the next 8 weeks. You know, and so that was at least
that's
the
great.
least I could do. Yeah,
that's great. I mean, you know, that's fantastic, man. That the thing is, some situations can't be avoided, and if we're not learning that lesson now, I don't know what lesson we're learning. You're seeing right. We've had over 100 major enterprises in the United States file bankruptcy in the last 90 days. Okay, so it's like obviously we're in a moment where some businesses just are not going to make it. The environment just will not allow it. You talked about a mortgage business. I'm not sure exactly when you had to shut it down, but I know there have been some moments in time, 2008, 2008, when the industry would not support the businesses. And exactly. you could do the best you can, but you still have to shut it down. But having that cash reserve, paying people, being honest, communicating up front, that's the way to do it, man. That's the best way to do it.
Now it's funny, man, because we kept rolling too long, and you know the crash hit. Nobody knew that it was going to be that severe.
Yeah.
So my partners and I, we were like, man, all right, we're gonna ride this thing out. We're funneling personal funds into the business, hundreds of thousands of dollars, trying to keep everything rolling. And finally, man, I went home one day, and my wife was like, I know you got a family at the office, bro, but you got to make sure you take care of this family. And so I'm like, I talked to, and unbeknownst to me, my partner's wives was saying the same thing to them, but we just never said anything. We got our heads together and we like, all right, we're hemorrhaging, we're losing money like crazy. How can we get out and still show appreciation for our employees that have rocked with us and built us from ground zero? And it's funny, man, even now to this day, and that's 12 years ago, I'm still good friends with a lot of my former employees because they respected the way that we went out. We were straight up, we tried to hang on. We did our best, and it crushed us, personally too. I mean, everything I had was tied up in that business. And that was, one of the times I almost lost it all. But I had to do right, by the people that stuck with me. So I was just blessed that we were able to at least give them that, so they can transition or try to transition, man. But that's big. So BEB family. So remember, it's an old saying I always live by. I didn't make it, but it's heavy as the head that wears the crown. It may look good, but you got a lot of stress and pressures when you're running the ship, man. So I appreciate you sharing that information with us, man. So let's fast forward. So you had mentioned that you got about a 3% stake in that last company that you were in.
Right. Yep. Yep.
So when did you go back on your own totally?
Okay. So what I did at the same time I was doing that, I had a great break. I had started to, this is where I learned about the benefit of building a personal brand, right? So remember, I'm going to bring you back to Emma, the email marketing company, right?
Gotcha.
So remember, back then, email marketing was what social media marketing is today, right? And so being that I worked in an email marketing company, I was kind of at the forefront of digital marketing. Man, I had a podcast about programming in the PHP language in 2005.
Damn.
Yeah, man. So
damn, bro.
Yeah, man. So I was like, learning about RSS feeds and blogging and all this other kind of stuff. So I threw an event in Nashville called Bar Camp Nashville, and it was the first gathering of like all the digital folks in the community. Now they have these things all the time. People, digital gatherings. But back then, this was the first one, and it was free. You could come for free. I had sponsors sort of cover everything. It was a 12-hour event. And that rose my personal brand up to where people in the industry started reaching out to me. So this one dude, this guy named Vic Gatto, he is a venture capitalist, and he was starting to think about what the future of venture capital was going to look like. So he and I struck up a friendship, and right when my business failed and I folded into this other company, he brought me into this conversation about doing a new kind of venture capital fund. And that ended up being the fund that we run today together. So while I was in this other company for 3%, nights and weekends, I'm working with Vic on Jumpstart Foundry, an accelerator. We were the first accelerator in the Southeast United States.
Wow.
And so I had a side hustle, you know what I mean? And I learned venture capital as an apprentice to him, you know, and what he valued about me was I was a technologist and an entrepreneur. So I was like showing us how we could leverage technology, how we could build a brand and leverage branding, because a lot of venture capitalists weren't doing that back then. How we could throw events, sort of all that stuff. I brought all that to the table. And, you know, he taught me the venture capital business, and I learned that nights and weekends, just like I learned coding when I was waiting tables, you know, right? I learned the venture capital business from 2009 to 2014. So when my run ended at Moontoast, being their chief technology officer, you know, when my run ended there, I had a smooth transition into being the president of this venture capital firm. You know, and he quit his firm, and we went in all in together on the firm that we still run today.
Oh man, that's cool, man. I know we had talked earlier before we started recording about venture capital. So a lot of times, I know my audience probably has a concept or vision of what VC venture capital is, and I want to talk to you about it because I know a lot of the first impression is you need to have $100 million, $50 million, whatever. So can you speak on and just go in depth what VC is, how you can start a venture capital firm, and if or what type of funds do you think you need? So just freestyle on it, baby. You know.
Yeah. So you can actually get into venture capital with zero funds. Okay.
Oh wow.
Meaning zero funds committed. Okay.
Right.
What I mean by that is zero funds committed. So let me lay out sort of the basics of venture capital. So venture capital is a way of investing in privately held companies. And that is juxtaposed to the stock market, which is a way of investing in publicly held companies. The primary difference between the two is the regulations on the two. Both are regulated by the SEC in the United States, Security and Exchange Commission. Okay. The public markets are highly regulated. And the reason why they're highly regulated is because they're public. So they have to be regulated to be safe for the general public to invest in. It can't, you can't have the general public investing into Ponzi schemes, right? So the stock market is highly regulated to protect the public. Private markets, investing in private companies, are not highly regulated, which means they are deemed less safe, more risky for the general public. So the SEC basically says, look, we can't really regulate the private market. It's too hard to track. It's too hard to keep up with. But they have some basic things in place. Okay. The basic things are, if a company wants to raise money privately, they have to file with the SEC. Okay. So that goes on a public record. So the SEC at least has a record that you are raising these funds. Okay. And then if you want to invest in that company, you have to be what's called an accredited investor. An accredited investor has a certain net worth or makes a certain amount every year, 2 years running, right? Net worth is generally $1 million, or you make $250,000 a year, and you can prove that with pay stubs 2 years running. Okay? That's venture capital.
In a nutshell.
That's venture capital. Now you get from really low fidelity venture capital, which is angel investing, which is, Jay, your podcast is booming. You want to raise You want to raise $100,000. You file with the SEC. I get, 4 of my friends, we're all accredited. We set up an LLC. We each put $25K in because we're accredited, and then we write you a check, and then that LLC owns a percent of your company for whatever we agree on. That's venture capital. That's called angel investing. You create a special purpose vehicle, which is that LLC, and that's lo-fi venture capital.
Gotcha.
All the way up to a managed fund, which is when you have what's called a general partner, an individual who is a professional fund manager, and they raise money from high net worth individuals, family offices, institutional funds, and pensions, and they manage that money for a management fee and a percentage of the returns, which is called carried interest. And that's a professionally managed fund. And those funds are up, they go everywhere from where we started Jumpstart Foundry, which was, every year we were investing less. When we first started, we were investing less than $100,000 total.
Wow. Okay.
Up to billions of dollars. Up to billions of dollars. And so that's venture capital.
Wow.
And then what you have to start to understand is you have to start to understand how deals are structured.
Okay.
So you have to start to understand equity, right? Meaning, your company has a total of 100% equity.
Yep.
And if you're an LLC, that equity is in a certain form. If you're a corporation, that equity is in a different form. Shares, right, versus basis points. Okay. So we decide how we're going to value your company, and then I exchange my money for whatever I can get in return based on the form of company you have. And when that transaction happens, not only do I get the equity, but because I put cash in the company, the value of the company is almost certainly going to change, because now it's worth whatever it was worth before, plus the value of the money that's just been put in.
Right.
So that's where you get pre-money valuation and post-money valuation. Those terms. That's where you get those terms from.
Right.
And then the final thing to really understand I think I've gone through most of it. The final thing to understand is the rights that the investor has. So investors are going to want different things, and it's all a negotiation. It's all a negotiation, right? But the kinds of things they may want look like governance rights. So they may want a board seat.
Right.
Dividends. So they may want a return on their investment, irregardless of the company selling.
Right.
And that could be a percentage of what they have invested every year for a certain number of years, a dividend back to them to kind of offset their risk.
Right.
And they could want what's called a liquidation preference. So that means if the company gets sold, there's a waterfall as to who gets paid the money. So it's like the first money in a typical preferred stock deal, the first money back goes to repay the investors.
Right.
And then when the investors are repaid, then you take the rest and you split it up per the percentages on what's called the capital table, the cap table, right, of the equity. So that's venture capital.
So what you're saying is the money that they invested in that scenario, they would get that back first before everything is split up.
That's right.
And then they would get back, say they own 25% equity in the business, they would get that back also.
Yeah, that's right.
They would get the initial investment and whatever equity position they had.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now everything is a term. So everything is negotiable. So you can take what I just said and flip it and bounce it and do a million different things with it. Okay. It's everything is a negotiation. Everything is a term sheet, and everything has to be mutually agreed upon. So nothing I said is set in stone, but what I just said are the general practices you need to understand about venture capital and how it works, which a lot of people don't understand.
Right. Now you broke it down real nice where the goats could get it, man. So So let's look from the other side of that equation. If you are a business, what type of businesses, or what do you have to need, or what do you need in place to be desirable for a VC firm to invest in you? Because I know a lot of times some of us run businesses and then other of us run businesses.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what do you need in place if you're looking to get VC funding as a business?
Yep. Yep. So you have to have a profile that can generate the kind of returns that a venture firm is looking for. Okay. You have to have the kind of profile. So, and what I'm about to say is not written in stone, because there are all sorts of venture firms that do all sorts of deals. But generally speaking, venture firms don't like to invest in services-based businesses, okay? Mm-hmm. Because there's no scale. Everything is tied to the people, right?
Right.
There's a reason why venture companies love to invest in technology companies, mm-hmm. right? Because if you invest in a technology company, you can sell the technology as an asset for right. multiple of future revenue, because that technology, a lot of these exits that we hear about, so-and-so, Google bought this tech, or Facebook bought this tech. The thing to keep in mind is Facebook can buy that company and pay all the people that work there out and just own the tech and run the tech themselves. Right. And often that's what ends up happening. The founders of Instagram are no longer there, right? You know what I mean? Like, it becomes a Facebook product. Instagram now is a Facebook product. It's not a different company. It's embedded and integrated into Facebook, right? So venture capitalists like to invest in things that are going to generate a high multiple on the exit. And the market sort of the mergers and acquisition market sets those terms. Not the venture capital firm. That they're just trying to get a return.
Right.
The mergers and acquisition market says we're going to pay 1.5 to 2x for an agency, or for a retail business, but we're going to pay 7 to 10 times 1 year's future projected revenue for a software as a service company.
Wow.
So which of the two do you think a venture firm wants to invest in?
Software as a service. Yeah. All right. Okay. That makes a lot of sense, man. That's breaking it down. So let's go back to your story now. So where are you right now? Because we're going to talk about your book in a little bit, but where are you right now? I know you gave us a little synopsis when we started out. What's your primary business that you're focusing on right now? And what are your other ancillary or additional businesses, and break them down for us?
Yeah, man. So I'm in the season of my life now, so I'm just 2020. I've been doing the entrepreneur thing for 13 years. And I think the venture capital part has been very, very helpful for me, because it's helped me to kind of understand portfolio theory. So, if you combine my experience as a venture capital with that really big mistake that I made when I had one company represent 70% of my revenue and totally like sucked me in.
Right.
I am allergic to having a single thing.
Gotcha.
I'm allergic to it. Right. So I don't have a single thing. Gotcha. Right now I probably have two things that I'm really, really focusing on.
Okay.
One is I'm focusing on my 100% owned Marcus Whitney International business, and the flagship, really the beachhead product from that is my book, Create and Orchestrate. Okay. It went live yesterday. I don't know when this is going to air, but June 30th it went live. We already hit the Amazon #1 bestseller in the first day. So, we're moving, you know what I mean? And a lot of things we talked about, like I have a whole chapter in the book that breaks down everything about venture capital. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, all the things we've talked about, I've got chapters dedicated to really laying these things out. You know what I mean? Where you can reference them and underline them and circle them and make notes and all that kind of good stuff. But that's the beachhead product. I have, media that I build around that as well. So a podcast, a daily live streaming show. I'm going to start building some courses around that as well. And I do speaking. Right now it's all virtual, but I do speaking as well, around that business. So that's I have my own e-commerce store. That's a business that I'm building, right?
Okay.
You understand that business is what you do. You get
what I did. Yeah.
you get this business. You've got books, you've got the podcast, you got the media company, this business. So I've got that business. Then I've got this venture capital business. Okay. And the way that we built that business was that it's a platform. So we started with one fund, but we realized, because we focus on healthcare. Healthcare's got so many different areas that you can get into, that you almost can create specialized funds for it. Okay. So we created a platform that will allow us to create specialized funds so that we can more effectively target investors to invest in our funds, companies to invest in, and then companies to sell those companies to, right? Oh, wow. And so I've really moved into the ownership strategic position around that business, and growing that platform, growing that venture capital platform in healthcare is the other big area that I'm focused on. So those are my two key areas. Okay.
So it's almost like with your VC platform, you're kind of building that ecosystem.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Speak to that. I talk about ecosystem all the time. So my books, my podcast is the driver, the online courses, the books, everything. Speak to your ecosystem with that VC platform real quick. And why do you think that's important for your business?
So one, the internet is an amazing tool for leverage. The ecosystems that we're building used to only be available to dudes like John Rockefeller and Cornelius Vanderbilt. Like they built the railroads. You know what I mean? Right. Those were ecosystems back in the day, right? Like that stuff was not available to us. Now, using the internet is just like you said. You got the podcast and the courses. Like you can build an ecosystem, right? You got Google Analytics. A lot of this stuff is free. A lot of it's free. So when you talk about ecosystems, the most important thing for me is understanding what are the tools that you have of leverage to be able to build an ecosystem. And it's basically the internet, right? Then you got to think about the design. An ecosystem allows you to, it's like Amazon, right? You know what I mean? Amazon is an ecosystem, and you start making money off of the things that you're doing to keep the business running. You know what I mean? Like they built this incredible cloud platform, and then they just started selling it. Now you got Amazon Web Services, and it's like, one of their biggest business lines. So ecosystem design is where you step back and you look at the big picture and you think about what are all of the different pieces of value in my network? Who are all of the different players? And what do each one of those players want? What do each one of them need? And how can I either connect them or provide the value they need? What do I need from them? It's that long range strategic thinking, and then getting in where you fit in. You know what I mean? Don't try and be everything in the ecosystem, but like, what can you do that's unique and valuable, and go do that.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. And that's one of the things I always talk about. And I know a lot of times the ecosystem it'll appear. Sometimes we don't even think about it when we're starting a business. Yeah. So when I started, I'm like, I knew there were a couple of things I wanted to do, but then I said, and I can connect these dots for it to make sense. And you have those synergies, economies of scale. And so one of my podcast episodes is coming up. I haven't got the real title for it yet, but it's going to be talking about macro thinking versus micro thinking. Where do you start? Do you start from the finished or end product and work back, or do you just start and let things develop? So when you were doing your VC platform, was the ecosystem always in play from the beginning, or was it something that kind of formed itself?
No, it formed itself. It was, okay. You're doing the work, and you get these aha moments as you,
Right.
As you do the work, you're like, oh, wow. Oh man, I didn't realize this. The opportunity starts to show itself to you as you're doing the work. And then, at a certain point, you have enough understanding and enough wisdom through your experience to really see the whole thing. And that's earned, right? You know what I mean? Like, nobody gives that to you. That's earned. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. So then it's like, if you want to continue to be a micro thinker, that's fine. But you now know the big picture. You know how the puzzle all fits together.
Yeah. It's funny, man, when my last book, A New Black Wall Street, Circulating the Black Dollar Worldwide by Building Successful E-Commerce Businesses, I'm writing the book and I'm like, all right, man, this is going great. Then I stop in the middle, probably the 3/4 of the book is done. And I said, man, I'm talking about this stuff, but I'm not giving people platforms to execute this.
Yeah.
So that's when I created the BeSmartByBlack.com and Hire Black Freelancer platforms. So now I had to stop the book. Let me create these platforms. So now when I talk about it, people have outlets to go ahead. Oh, let me put my stuff on BeSmartByBlack.com, or I'm a freelancer, put my services on Hire Black Freelancer. And that's how that kind of came into it, because a lot of times we'll create things, or especially like in the podcast space, and you're in the media space too. I like to give people actionable steps. How can I get them from point A to point Z? As opposed to just giving them theory, let me give them some practical things and platforms that they can use to complete the task.
That's
and
right.
So it was kind of funny, man, because I didn't even think about that until I started writing the book. And I said, man, then somebody else said to me, one of the my listeners was like, man, well, why are you going to create another platform like that? There's already platforms, that Black product producers can go on. I said, it's not an either or proposition.
Right.
I said, so if you sell physical products, you could sell on Amazon, eBay, Etsy. I said, so if I'm going to talk about this, I said, what happens if that business goes out of business? And I'm talking about this concept, and I'm relying on somebody else to be a piece of that ecosystem that I have no control over. So I'm like, man, let me go ahead and build this out. And as I started building that out, man, Marcus, you were right on, brother, because then other things started coming. Well, what else do I need in the ecosystem to help people move forward, man?
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah.
And you're leveraging technology to do it. So it scales. It's like you can keep adding pieces on, and you don't have to. And I'm glad this is an entrepreneur podcast. So no one's going to take what I'm about to say wrong, but you can add pieces on without having to add people on.
Exactly. Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because
Definitely.
The people.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. Exactly.
Exactly,
man. Man, bro, I gotta, if you got about 5 more minutes, man, you good?
Let's
Okay,
go.
cool.
Let's go.
One of the things you had mentioned in your book, man, create and orchestrate. Tell the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family a little bit about your book and the impetus of your book, why you wrote it, and what it's about.
Yeah, man. I did a TEDx talk in 2014. If you've never done one, they're so scary. And I came off stage, and this teenage girl came up to me at the end and said, hey, I'm going to put the words believe, partner up, and orchestrate on my ceiling. So every day when I wake up, I'm going to see those words. And those were the words, those were the key steps that I was talking about in my talk. And that showed me, wow, my story and the philosophies that I've learned through my journey are valuable to other people. So that planted the seed. I really should be thinking about writing a book. Now that was 2014. It's 2020. So this has been 6 years in the making.
Right.
This has been 6 years in the making, and it couldn't have come out before today because, some of the stuff in there, I've got a chapter in there about how we brought a Major League Soccer team to Nashville. These are stories that people, just don't know. That they just see a team appear and they're just like, wow, how did that happen? You know what I mean? I had a front row seat, man. I saw the whole thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I was like, man, let me just take 10 pages and just frame that up just so people can understand, oh, this is how that happens. You know what I mean? Like, this is how something like that goes down. So I knew that I knew from that teenage girl that I had wisdom that I could share that would help other people. I knew that I made some really bad mistakes when I left Emma and I started my agency that I could have avoided if someone had given me that wisdom. And I just sort of thought, man, what book would Marcus have needed in 2007? You know what I mean? The Marcus who left that company and never could have dreamed he would be, you know, where he is today. Like, you know, there's no way I thought that. But he was struggling with where he was, and he didn't even know he was struggling with it. You know what I mean? Right. What kind of what kind of book would be helpful for him? And I thought, you know, a book that offers narrative, that is vulnerable, that talks about successes, but not before it talks about failures. You know what I mean? To normalize the failure, because the failure is normal. It's, you know, it happens more than half the time. So you got to talk about it. You got to talk about what you learn from it. And then also, the spine of the book is called The 8 Core Concepts. And I wanted to come up with, you know, I didn't graduate from college. I didn't go to business school. And so I actually didn't really understand the framework that underlies every single business. And when I started talking to people about it, I didn't see one readily accessible. It was like there was an assumption that you understood what the framework of every business is. Okay. There was this assumption. And so going back to my computer programming roots, man, I just kind of built a framework, you know, based on what I understood and what I had learned mostly through the failures. Like, what are the core concepts of every business and what is the priority order of them? You know, so the 8 core concepts, which are leadership, finance, operations, growth, product, service, sales, and marketing, in that order. That is what every single entrepreneur has to understand. You have to understand those 8 things. You have to understand why they're in that order. You don't have to be great at all 8, but you got to know them so that if you delegate something to somebody else, you can hold them accountable.
Exactly, man. So that's a blessing, bro. I'm so glad, man, that you wrote that book, because there are a lot of people, once again, that don't understand those core concepts because, like you said, people just assume that, hey, you should know these. But it's crazy. Once you get out there and you start mixing around, that's why I tell people, you can write a 500-page business plan. It means absolutely nothing. You got to get out there and mix around and understand, to immerse yourself, to find out what you really need to know and to move your business forward. I've had coaching students, mastermind students rather, that we were in a mastermind, and I'm like, all right, we're brainstorming, you're coming up with an idea. We had this one sister that actually was in a mastermind group 3 months before she could even come to an idea about a product or a service to start. It's just, it was so much, oh, well, if I do, I said, look, you just got to do something. You got to pick something and get out there and let the universe tell you what it thinks.
That's right.
Instead, you know, and I'm like, man, it's crazy, bro. So that's one of the biggest things. What they say, paralysis by analysis.
Yes.
Put something out there, minimum viable product. Put it out there, see what people think, and then rework it from there.
That's right.
Oh man, brother. I got a couple more questions real quick. I'm not going to hold you, man, but is there anything that I left out in this interview that you want to add? Something that you think is important for the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint family?
You know, I wouldn't say anything that I left out, but I would say, you know, it's cool for them to listen to this episode. It's cool for them to be a subscriber to your podcast. Mm-hmm. But, you know, in addition to listening to what we're saying, watch what we're doing. Watch what Jay is doing. Like, go to his website and look at what he's doing. You feel what I'm saying? Like, model the work. Don't just listen and be, you know, there's paralysis by analysis. There's also, like, you know, death by consumption. You know like you got to create. You got to create. That's why my book is called Create and Orchestrate. You got to create. You got to make something, man. You know, that's why I'm so proud of you, man. You know, we talked when we first we're syncing up and making sure the show was good. And you were like, man, I'm not as big as the big boys. Okay, you're not as big as Joe Rogan, but man, you got a ton of downloads. You've been doing this for a long time. You built a really reputable brand. When I go and I look it up, man, it's there for years. Tons of content, putting in the work. That's what people need to see. That's what people need to see. People need to understand it took me 6 years to write this book. If you go to my website, there's 300 plus posts of free content that I did before I put this book out. I didn't get a #1 bestseller because I just wrote the book and nobody knew who the hell I was.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It ain't because the book is so great. It's because we've been putting in the work. Exactly. So that's the thing I want people to know, man. It's cool to listen to us, but watch what Jay does.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
That's what I want people to know.
Oh, man. All right, Marcus, I know you got a lot going on, but how can people connect with you? How can they buy your book? Because what we do here, man, we support everybody that's on the show. So tell us how we can link with you and also how we can buy your book, man.
MarcusWhitney.com, man. MarcusWhitney.com.
Everything there?
Everything's there.
Okay, cool. All right, MarcusWhitney.com. All right, and that's WHITNEY.
That's right. Right. MarcusWhitney.com. You can sign up for my newsletter. I send a simple newsletter every Monday, and that's you're going to get everything that I'm doing in that newsletter. But if you go there, you'll find advertising for the book, podcast, daily streaming show, all that stuff. That's where you go.
MarcusWhitney.com. Last and final question, brother. If you had the opportunity to talk to one person, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Man, you know what? I started watching on Netflix this Madam C.J. Walker show. Yeah. I'm actually kind of fascinated with her right now, man. Her, like I thought I hustled, but her hustle looks. I mean, dog. I mean, it just looks like. I mean, Black woman. In that time where even, like when you see like, how she's trying to get recognized by Booker T. Washington and like, he's not even giving her the time of day, you know what I mean? And like, there's no internet. She's got to put the flyers up on her own, man. She's moving her family from one place to the other. She's making, talking about manufacturing. She turns her house into a factory. I mean, that, it's like our hustle. We don't even know what hustle is, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't even know what hustle is. You look at somebody like that. So I think, at the moment, as a Black entrepreneur, I'm trying to channel that kind of hustle. You know what I mean? And I'm sure she has some lessons that would be unbelievable.
Yeah. And one of the things that I loved about her was, and I talk about that vertical integration, is being able to control from the manufacturing to the distribution. And if you can do that, economies of scales, profitability, control, all of that comes with it.
That's right. That's right.
My brother, I appreciate you, man. We need young brothers out here like you. You're talking about venture capital, and to a lot of us, man, it's a foreign word. We know what it means, but we don't know what it means.
That's systematic. That's intentional, like so many other things, right? So that's why any of us who gets into these rooms and learns these things, we got to come out and share it and demystify it.
Definitely, brother. Brother, I want to thank you, man, for sharing with the BEB family. Anytime you got anything, bro, we're going to be in touch anyway.
Yeah.
So, if we can collaborate, that's what everybody else normally does. Anything that I can help you with, man, feel free to reach out and collaborate. I mean, we can, everybody else does it, every other ethnicity, and that's what we need to start doing too, so we can further along everybody's businesses, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And, I appreciate you offering me this opportunity to be on your platform. It's an incredible platform. Congratulations on all your success. And if I could do something for you, let me know.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, brother.
All right, man.
That was an amazing interview with Mr. Marcus Whitney. Please make sure you go to MarcusWhitney.com. Check out his new book, Create and Orchestrate, and everything that he has on his site. Now, before I give my takeaways and we wrap up the show, guys, I just want to share all my social media contact information and my resource links. So I mentioned at the top, my new book is out, A New Black Wall Street, Circulating the Black Dollar Worldwide by Building Successful E-Commerce Businesses. You can go to anewblackwallstreet.com, pick yourself up a copy, the print version right here, $14.95 plus shipping and handling. The digital version, $9.95. I've also created a compatible online flagship course that teaches you how to create and build successful e-commerce brands, be it a physical brand or a digital product brand. And it's called Brand Builder Academy Elite. So you can go to bbaelite.com, fill out the information. It'll take you to the landing page. And if you do decide to register with the program, use the code BBAELITE100 once you start registering, and that takes you down to a $97 investment. And this is a 15-module course that takes you from A to Z. So go to BBAElite.com. If you decide to enroll, then use the code or coupon code BBAELITE100. Also, I mentioned at the top of the show, I have 2 platforms to help circulate the black dollars in the worldwide black economy. The first one is BeSmartByBlack.com. BeSmartByBlack.com. What that is, it's a platform for all black product producers to connect with black consumers who want to buy black products. It is free to upload your product information, so go to BeSmartByBlack.com. Now, I've created an additional platform for freelancers. So if you do anything on Fiverr.com or Freelancer.com, go to HireBlackFreelancers.com, HIRE, BlackFreelancers.com. Upload your information. Once again, that is also free, and you can connect with black consumers and black businesses that want to hire black freelancers. Also, once this COVID thing breaks, if you want me to come out and speak at your college, university, church, school, organization, just go to bookjjones.com, fill out the short form, and I'll get right back to you. Now, all of this is on bebconnect.com. That's a page on my website. It has all of my resource links and also my social media contact information, but I'm going to give that to you real quick. So if there's anything long, email me at jjones@blackentrepreneurblueprint.com, JAYJONES at blackentrepreneurblueprint.com. Facebook, go to Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Twitter, jjones001, JAYJONES001. Instagram, jjones4real, JAYJONES, the number 4, REAL. YouTube. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, family. I have additional content on YouTube that is not on the actual podcast. Yes, the podcast does come out on YouTube, but there's additional content. So please go to YouTube, type in Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, hit the like and subscribe button. Also, LinkedIn, just check me out, J Jones, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. If you want to be included in the BEB text line for live notifications and reminders about special events, text BEB to 555-888. Text BEB to 555-888. Now, once again, all of the information I just gave you, you can find it at bebconnect.com. BEBconnect.com, like Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, BEBconnect.com. That's a page on my website that has everything that I just told you, and that's the best way to connect with me. Also, let's now close out and talk about some takeaways from this amazing interview with Mr. Marcus Whitney. One of the first things that really hit me was that when he was in a situation, when he dropped out of school, had a child and another one on the way, things looked real bad. But the key was Marcus didn't stop. He figured out, well, how can I update or level up my skills to earn more money to take care of my family? So he taught himself coding by himself, which is, and obviously we talked about that he probably had some type of proficiency in that. So that was a tremendous thing. So if you're in a situation where things look bleak, it doesn't look good, you need to level up your skill set so you can increase your income. Another thing was that I liked he talked about was he built his personal brand, and that allowed him to make connections. So a lot of times people always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. So he built up his personal brand and built up a positive reputation that allowed him to connect with venture capitalists and other people, which helped propel his business and actually has him in the position that he's in right now. So always look to build your personal brand. Okay. And the last thing I want to talk about was when he talked about one business was the majority income for that particular business he owned. So I always talk about one being the worst number, one stream of income. If one business is more than 25 or 30% of your revenues, you're in trouble. So you always want to diversify. So it's better to have 10 companies that are giving you $1 million than one company that's giving you $7 million. Because if that one company leaves, or in Marcus's case, basically envelops them, then you're basically sitting there working for somebody else. And so that was something that was very important. So you need to make sure that you're diversified. And I talk about this a lot on some of the programs. You want to have money in all types of economy. You need income streams in a positive economy, a real good economy. You need income streams in a neutral economy, and you need to have some income streams in a bad economy. So if you can tick all of those boxes off, that means that you're going to be fine regardless of what goes on in terms of the actual economy. So you want to have monies coming in good economy, a neutral economy, and also a bad economy. One of the other things that I wanted to touch base on too is that when you go into business and you're an entrepreneur, and Marcus touched on it, I talk about it all the time. Remember, there are going to be bumps in the road, but that is a part of the learning process. So you don't let that stop you. You take that, you file that back in the back of your head and say, look, I'm not going to make those type of mistakes again. And that's what enables you to level up your business. Okay, so those are par for the course, as they say. You're going to have stumbling blocks. You're going to make mistakes. As long as you learn from those mistakes and continue to move forward and don't make those mistakes again, that's what that whole process is all about. Before we close on out, guys, I say this each and every week, and I'm telling you, it's been amazing the last year and a half. We just been increasing downloads episode by episode, month by month, quarter by quarter, and that's all attributed to you, the BEB family. Please continue to spread the word about the podcast and the blog. And I always say, guys, it's more than that. It's a movement. It's about building an economic power base in the Black community. So please, when I do social media posts, share those posts with your people, with your network, word of mouth, whatever you got to do, because we're trying to get this good word out there. Right now, the situation in the economy is crazy. COVID's out there. People don't have incomes. They're losing jobs. They're losing houses. They're losing everything. And one of the things that we need to understand, that we have to take the bull by the horns, guys, and we have to be responsible for our own financial well-being. So yes, you may work at a job, and if this coronavirus hasn't touched you, that's a blessing. But if you haven't understood right now that nothing is guaranteed, your personal business, your entrepreneurship, your business isn't guaranteed, and neither is corporate America. So make sure, once again, one is the worst number. Never have one stream of income. And if you are blessed to be currently employed, the best time to start a business, family, is when you have a job. That's the best time to start, because you can leverage those resources. You're still being able to pay your bills, and you're not just jumping out there and saying, hey, I'm rocking with it. Now, I've done that before and been successful. But if you're not built like that, the easiest way to do it is while you have a job. So if you're doing something right now as a side hustle, continue to push forward with that. If you haven't started your business yet, start writing things down, giving yourself ideas, and start working on that path, because you never want to get caught out there again like a lot of people did with the coronavirus, where all of a sudden they had a job on Monday, Tuesday they couldn't go to work, and eventually they lost their income. And that's a place that you don't want to be, family. So I just wanted to share that information with you. Once again, guys, please continue to spread the word about Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, the podcast and the blog. Once again, it's a movement. We need to elevate ourselves. We need to make sure that we're not relying on anybody else. Love you guys. I'll see you same time next week. Peace.